I'm gonna be going live here in a minute, just trying to get some folks in. Just trying to get some folks in here. Gonna be doing a response to Mark Minard's video. He finally responded and broke his silence about what's going on with the debate with Wesley and Billy. So should be pretty interesting here. So just give us a minute here while I get everything set up. This is my first solo live, so I'm pretty sure I'll screw it up. Let's see. I'm actually on vacation right now. I'm at a friend's house and they went to dinner. So let's see. If anybody's in here, drop me a little comment in the chat just so I see when people are jumping in. Also, give it a like. Hopefully, we can get some more people in here before I start because I have limited time before all their kids come home and start screaming. All right. Hey, Melissa, thanks for giving me that confirmation that you're in here. Let's give it one more minute, and then I'm going to play Mark Minard's response. He's been silent about this whole thing for the past 2 months since it all went down. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what he says. I'm also on my laptop, which is pretty terrible quality. I'll give it a little bit longer here. I'm on vacation. Finally take a little break. So it's been nice to get away with the wife. We're in Southern California, trying to get away from the Idaho weather. But I had to get away. Also, did you guys see that Wesley Huff was on Joe Rogan? They haven't released the episode yet, but I saw that Wesley posted on his Instagram that he made it to Rogan. It's pretty amazing how this thing's escalating, and now how Wesley's going to get an opportunity to refute everything that Billy said on Rogan's podcast. Hopefully, he gets an opportunity to go on Andrew Schultz and Sean Ryan, PBD, those other shows where Billy went out and spewed all that BS about the Sinai Bible and all that stuff that he rants on about. That's all completely misinforming the public. So God's working in a pretty interesting way right now, and it's funny that it all happened by mistake. Mark and Anton, Wesley, they never even meant for this to happen, but because of Billy's response, now he kept trying to hide all of this. The Streisand effect took full course and just blew it up. So I think we got a few more folks in here. I'm going to go ahead and start. And I'm probably going to be a little more quiet on this one since I don't have Dennis, my co host, to bounce ideas off of and make fun of. So let me hit it. I think it's on this screen here. Again, thanks for being patient with me. Yeah, Tim, it really is getting crazy. But again, God works in mysterious ways, huh? So, dude, it's going to be incredible to see where this goes now that Wesley's on Joe Rogan. It's going to be incredible to see who picks this up. What a godsend this guy's been. Wesley out of nowhere. Okay. So again, hey, we're my first solo live, so bear with me as I figure it all out. Usually Dennis is in here and he's my wannabe tech guy, and I'm always making fun of him. But actually, this is much harder than I thought. So this is Mark Minard's response after 2 months of being silent. He finally put out a hour and a half statement, kind of his own little deposition, he calls it, on the whole situation. He gives his whole story about what really happened because if you watched Billy's response, or I should say his 3.5 hour rant, if you compare Billy's response to the actual interview with Mark and Wesley, you very quickly realize that Billy's just making a lot of stuff up and trying to cover his tracks. So now that Mark has finally put out a statement, it will be fascinating to hear what he says. So let's see if this works. And thank you guys for being here. Please give it a like. Hopefully, some more folks pop in here soon. You guys hear everything? Volume's okay? Let me know in the comments if you guys can help me out a little bit. Perfect timing. Hey, another thing I want to do while we listen to this, I want to establish the timeline because Billy, Melissa, so you don't hear the video itself? Hmm, interesting. Let me see if I can pull it up on another screen if that'll work. Thanks for letting me know. I appreciate it. Give me 1 second. So if you guys aren't hearing the audio, okay, I might have to pull it up on Chrome. This is what happens when I don't have the studio and I try to get on here on vacation on a laptop. I gotta be nicer to Dennis about the tech stuff. It really is way more complicated than it's worth. Okay, let me see. Okay, my here. All right, let's see if we got this time. Share screen, Chrome tab. All right, Melissa, thanks for letting me know before. Let me know if you guys hear it this time.
Did I say anything bad about story behind the story of what happened
Can you hear it now,
from
guys?
when I had my friend and Wesley Huff on my show, Elevate and Beyond podcast? You can say this is my deposition. Let's talk about going back a little bit, how my good man and I even met. It was over 2 years ago. The original show we did was on freaking October 18th, believe it or not, when we actually recorded it. So it's been 2 months. But anyway, I've received some crazy comments from a lot of you. Some actually really like horrible and threatening, even to the point of some people saying, what's your address? Share it. I know where you guys live. I hope you and your kids burn in hell. Yeah, this has all been crazy. But I'm not sitting here today to try to play the victim. I'm not. I'm just here to finally share the factual story behind the story. And I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best. I'm human, everyone, to share this with integrity. But I'm also going to be real and raw. I'm not going to sit here and lie and hold back on the truth. So, how Billy and I actually met. My son, as we moved here, was playing. We have a little like clubhouse here in the neighborhood it's awesome with like a indoor basketball court and like playground and all this stuff, pools. And my son was playing at the playground, and this other kid was there with his grandma, who's an amazing lady. And they met each other. They started hanging out. They started playing. My son, that ended up being now stepson, and his wife.
Hey, so it looks like he's going to bleep out every time he uses the name Billy Carson. But I can't help but find it really funny. It sounds like he's saying something inappropriate every time he bleeps it. But that's just my sense of humor. As more people get in here, so we're watching Mark Minard's response to the whole situation with the Billy Carson debate with Wes. Mark's been silent. It was his podcast that the whole thing went down on, and he's been silent basically the entire last 2 months about the whole situation. And now he's making his official response video to it as well. And I'm also going to pause it a few times as we go through, and he kind of mentions dates so that we could kind of secure a timeline. Like he already said that the debate officially happened on October 18th, and now that was almost 2 months ago, right? So it's almost January 1st here. So I'll do as little talking as possible, but I do want us to get a timeline secured as he mentions more and more dates.
Wife's son. They became really good friends. That led to me meeting and then us talking about behind the scenes. He's like, oh, you have a show. I do this too. Talking about business, sharing with him about Dream Shine, learning more about what he does, what I do. And we continue to become really good friends. So I thought over the past 2+ years. And I know from the outside looking in, this can seem really, really crazy from all these events that have happened. I never expected any of this to happen. And I'll get to that in a minute, including the full consent that we had when we did the show. Not only the first show, the second show. And I was also on your show. We'll get to that in a second. So we've spent time together. We got to know each other behind the scenes. And I got to know each other I never really, like, totally followed his stuff. Like, I'm super busy and so is he. Like, I'm on the grind. I have a company, I told you, Dreamshine. We serve now almost 100 individuals with developmental disabilities with now 2 locations, Dreamshine, the waterfront location on 2.5 acres with a waterfront lodge, pirate shipbuilding, the cabin, and Dreamshine Gardens, our other location on 5 acres, which is amazing. We also do transportation. So we have over 20 plus, getting closer to 30 team members, employees, the dream team. That's not to mention the podcast that you're seeing, Elevating Beyond, which, by the way, I've been doing for 9 years plus. My books.
The future is not just going to happen. You have to make it. And if you
Boo.
want a success,
That's right. The dude that was in jail, best-selling author. The story of you transforming adversity to adventure, taking your dreams to the next level and beyond. That's where I share like my whole backstory of from being in jail to starting Dreamshine. That was even a bestseller, by the way, like not only in personal development, but Christian motivation. And I'm obsessed with leadership because that was a game changer in my life and in my company. These are all things that I've continued to do throughout my life, speaking events, all that good stuff. And as and I connected more and more, we talked about all this in business and in life, and we would share stuff and share strategies and how we run our companies, all great things. And I had him originally before this whole thing with Wesley on my show. This was back around April of 2023 when I had originally here in this same studio on my podcast, Elevating Beyond, where no freaking consent form was signed.
Hmm.
By the way, I've done over 300 shows. Never once have I officially had a guest sign a consent form. I've been on over 500 shows as a guest. I've never signed or been asked to sign a consent form.
If you guys remember, during Billy's rant, he kept going on and on about the fact that he never signed a consent form. He never officially allowed him to release it. That's not common practice. It might be common practice for like massive, massive shows like Joe Rogan or something like that. But I've never had people sign consent forms like he just said, like Mark just said. People that have come on his shows have not signed consent forms. He's never signed. That is not common practice. So when you hear Billy in his rant go off about how it was very unprofessional and he's never signed a consent form, that's because nobody asks people to do that. Usually, podcasts are just people talking, unless it's some kind of full blown company and media organization that's behind the group. Then they'll handle it more professionally and get consent forms and legal involved.
I do understand at certain levels, like my good man Joe Rogan and
Mm,
others, and actually now moving forward, I'm going to start having that
mm.
from all this craziness that has happened. Um, that they do things like that. Anyway, originally when was on my show the first time in 2023, I he sat here next to me. He shared his whole story of what he overcame, his adversity, his story behind the story, how he built his first company, the ups and downs, the failures, what led him to get to where he is now, which I do with tons of my guests. That's what it's all about. All right, moving forward. A little while later, I don't have the exact date here, I was a guest on show, which as of now, they still have it up. I don't care. That's fine. They never had me sign a consent form either, as no one ever has. That's never been.
Oh, that's funny. So Billy wanted or was saying that the video's illegal because he didn't sign a consent form, but Mark was on Billy's show and Mark didn't sign a consent form. Or when Billy was on Mark's show before, Billy also didn't sign a consent form. So how funny.
The norm to be on their show. And it was a great conversation. Billy had me share my whole story behind the story of jail and starting Dream Shine and overcoming adversity. And it was a great thing. Okay, so then let's move to how this whole thing came about with Wesley. As I got to know my good man more, we spent a lot of time together. I think he talked about it on that 3.5 hour live stream he did, which I'm not going to get into all that right now. Like that we were at his wedding and my son is friends with his stepson and his wife's son. They were all at the wedding. We were all together in Bora Bora. It was a great time. My wife hung out with his wife. And I have had a lot of awesome conversations behind the scenes. He knows that I'm a Christian and I'm also a free thinker. And I continue and I'm always curious and I love to absorb things and learn and share the knowledge and the wisdom. And we've had some awesome conversations. And I thought that we had a lot of similar core values. So I thought it would be really cool. We started talking like, in the future, we should have you back on the show, my man, and have like a healthy conversation, debate, not a scheduled debate where I'm a freaking moderator. We'll explain all that more in a minute about our different beliefs, but also in a healthy way that people can see we have different beliefs and different reasons why we believe in what we believe, but also we can still unify and not hate each other and be disrespectful to each other and talk about the things that we have in common as well. That's where this all came about. Months ago, we started talking about this. So I know that one thing mentioned and his wife and other people was when we did the show, he was so extremely sick and we were debating a dead man, I believe they said. So let me help clear that up. It was around September 28th, and I have proof of all this. I'm not going to waste my time sharing screenshots and all that. I have proof if we need it, receipts if we really need it. Anyway, my good man Billy texted me from Egypt and was asking me, let's do a show, when I get back about this whole thing, this like healthy debate discussion about our different beliefs. I'm going to get into some actual dates timeline wise here.
Nice.
Okay. So my good man, before September 19th, I don't know the exact date when they went to Turkey, and he does travel all around. They work hard. That's something that I respect about him and he respects about me. And he did get really sick when they were in Turkey and flew back. It was a really bad situation. I remember constantly checking in with him. And it was literally on September 19th when I went to his house. He lives a street over to check on my man and see how he was doing for real. And he shared with me like he did almost die. That's for real. And he had lost a bunch of weight. And I was super worried about him. His wife was there. They opened up to me about all that was going on. And I was worried about my guy, man, for real. That's why I went to his house. I wanted to check up on him. Anyway, they then had an event in Egypt shortly after that. And I know he still wasn't feeling well. I was worried about him going. They did what they had to do. I know he took it easy. And it was around September 28th. He texts me from Egypt and he's like, "Hey, bro, when I get back, let's do that show where we're going to have that healthy debate, conversation about our different beliefs." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, let's do it." So, although my good man had been really sick, this was about a month later when we actually did the show.
Hey, I think why this is important, why he's going into this about Billy being sick about a month before the debate, was because if you guys remember, um, when Billy did his response video, his 3.5 hour rant, he kept saying, and on another episode, his wife was saying that Billy had just gotten out of the hospital. He was deathly sick or deathly ill. He could barely breathe. He had a band aid on his arm from the IV where he had just left the hospital and they had just taken the IV out. But Mark's making the point that, hey, all of that happened a month before this debate ever happened. So it's almost like Billy's either just straight up lying or he's trying to purposely hide the fact that it was a month ago and they're trying to they're trying to tease it out as if it was literally an hour before the debate, but that's not true. It was a month prior.
How this all really came about and started to involve Wesley was me knowing my man. I was excited for this. Has shared so much like knowledge and science and all this stuff with me. I was really thinking like this is going to be phenomenal. However, when it comes to all these different books that I believed he specialized in, I truly believed he was amazing in, that when we went to talk about like my beliefs in Christianity and I'm a free thinker, we'd be able to have a great heart to heart conversation. But when it came to these different books and ancient texts,
I'm getting back on track with Factor.
Fresh, never frozen meals are ready in minutes.
Factor.
I'm not an expert in any of that. And I never pretend to be when I'm not. I have no problem saying I don't know anything about that. And I started talking to my good man, Anton, who, Anton, I actually met through God's always orchestrating at one of his, I think it was their New Year's Eve party a couple of years ago. And we connected. Anton was a great dude. We had a good conversation. Anton has been helping me with my media, my social media, Anton and his team, by the way. And they've been great. And I'm like, man, Anton, like, this is going to be awesome. But when it comes to like the ancient texts, the emerald tablets, all these different things I know specializes in, I don't like have anything worthwhile to even know. And I'm like, can you help me start doing some research on this so I can have some preparation? And Anton did. Again, this is normal stuff that I'm going to do for any regular show with anyone. I was hoping and planning this would be an amazing and healthy conversation from all parties. As Anton started sending me some stuff, and then this came up pretty quickly too. Like, got back from Egypt and he's like, man, I'm going to actually be available next week. And with how crazy all of our schedules are, mine and his, I mean, there's times where like I'm flying here, he's flying there, our planes might cross in the sky. And I'm like, man, we're both available. Yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So Anton started sending me some information and different things to go over. And I started reviewing it. And it was like getting closer and closer to the show. And he mentioned this guy, Wesley Huff. He said, I respect Wesley, Mark, and he really does his research. he's got his credentials. This is like the stuff he studies. Here's some awesome like things he goes over. And I'm like, I love it. Let's do it. And then the more he sent it to me and I started reading it over and over, I'm like, man, do you know this guy, Wesley? Like, I would actually love to see if he could just join us on the show. That would be amazing. And we can all just have a conversation together. And Anton's like, no, I haven't personally met him. Like, I've watched his stuff. And I'm like, first of all, he's my good friend. And also, as I do with all my shows, I always have to have someone that I truly know and respect, and I'm looking for them, or I've had someone else that I know and respect that vouches for them. Or if we have someone on, there's like a whole process that we go through. And Anton's like, dude, I've seen this guy. He has amazing character. He's super humble. He's super knowledgeable. I ended up just literally DMing Wesley. It was October 17th, the day before the show on Instagram, being like, I'm gonna have on tomorrow. And I have been good friends for a while. We're gonna have like a healthy conversation about our different beliefs. And
It's still funny. It's still every time he censors it, it sounds like he's cussing or saying something inappropriate. So I crack up.
I would love it if like you're available if you could join us. Wesley happened to see the DM, replied to me. Wesley and I were able to set up a phone meeting. We talked about it. And Wesley's like, yeah, I would love to do that. That would be great. I shared the whole backstory of how I know we're great friends. This is going to be an amazing, healthy conversation. Anyway, moving forward, Wesley's like, I'm all the way in Canada because I'm always all about doing my shows in person. I have this thing with like being together in person. There's just like a different energy that you feel in connection when you're together in person. It was 24 hours notice. He wasn't able to fly down here from Canada. However, right when I got off the phone with Wesley, I called my good man and was like, bro, I want to know if it's okay with you if I have Wesley Huff, who is and I went over all his credentials, a Bible historian. I still butcher the word, like linguist, all his stuff, to be able to join us on the show. And I flat out said to Billy, my good man, because when it comes to all your ancient books you study, the Emerald Tablets, all the other things, I don't know anything about that, bro. But this guy's an expert and he'll be able to come in and we can all have a conversation when it comes to those things. He'll be able to join in and talk about that with you. Why I join in. No, I was never meant to be a freaking moderator, everyone. For the love of God. You'll hear more about that later. And I never am, if you've seen my previous shows. They're conversations that we have. Anyway, but I was like, I would never want to have someone like that just jump in on a show and like catch you off guard without you being cool with it. I would never do that. And he was like, oh, yeah, bro. Like, Mark, yeah, that's totally fine. For sure. Let's do it.
If you've purchased a faulty car, you can get a massive payout like this and get your entire car loan paid.
If you guys remember, Billy was saying that the whole thing with Wes was an ambush, and it was just kind of sprung on him at the last second. But it sounds like Mark gave him at least a 24-hour notice, told him who Wes was, told him all his credentials, and Billy just didn't do his homework and then got bit in the butt for it.
That was that, everyone. I know that your people are thinking there should be some crazy, deeper conspiracy. That was that.
Yeah, because Billy was saying that there's a gang and Wesley's in a gang from Canada and it's a mafia and they pressured Mark and Anton to do the debate and they pulled one over on Billy. It was total BS. Billy was just lying and Mark is claiming that he gave him a 24-hour notice and Billy was totally fine with Wes coming on the show, and he knew about it.
Still in my head, I'm thinking like, oh, this is going to be cool. We're going to have a great conversation tomorrow. This is going to be awesome. So we sit down, even comes to my house with full consent to be on my show with full consent, as when he was on my show before a year later, and I was on his show again, knowing that Wesley was going to be on the show as well. And by the way, I've never said anything bad about character ever, or his wife, and I won't. Even though they've said horrible things about us, lies, other things on that live stream, I'm not going to sink down to that level. I'm just not. So, coming into this show, thought it would be a great conversation. We sat down. Let me pop this open here. My good man sat right here next to me. We started having a conversation. Again, talked about Wesley's going to be joining us. This is going to be great. I opened up with sharing how I knew how much I vouched for his character. At the time, I did. What a great person he was. What a great friend he was. How we can have a great conversation about our different beliefs and be respectful. How Wesley was going to be joining us. And full consent, knowing all this, everyone was cool. I'm expecting a great conversation. So we open up with something that have been openly talking about with these books he specializes in about that Jesus wasn't crucified. I just thought this was a regular great question to start off with. By the way, I had a list of tons of other things I purposely didn't even get into. I'll explain to that later. So we start getting into it. I'm sitting here, and then all of you that have seen it, it didn't air on my show. I'll explain that later. You see Wesley then counteracts it, and then I believe his response, very humbly and nicely, by the way, was like, fair enough. I was like in shock when that happened, because I was like, wait, what? I mean, that was nice and humble, but wait, fair enough. Hold on, wait, what? Because I'm used to my man Billy talking and going on and telling me all these points and tangents, and I thought he was going to have him. I truly, in my heart, honest to God, thought that he was going to have all these things to rebuttal him on and be like, da 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 da. That's what I was used to knowing. So when he's like, fair enough, I was like, I was like, what is going on right now? Okay, how do we keep moving this forward? So we started getting into the other points. I believe like Jesus, the book that was so-called written in the Harvard libraries, you guys have all seen it. Wesley went through the factual methodologies, broke it down, how that was proven to be like historically across all communities a fraud. Again, I thought it was going to be like, no, because of blah, blah, blah. I was shut up that whole time. And then again, he's like, okay, yeah, whatever he said, like, if that's right, like, I'll take your word on that. And I'm sitting here in the room like, what is happening right now? Because even as we...
So it sounds like Mark was expecting way more from Billy during the debate, not just to roll over and say, "Oh, okay, if you say so, let's go with that."
We were coming into this debate conversation show. I sat right next to my man before we recorded, again with full consent, and was like, this Wesley guy came highly referred, seems super knowledgeable and humble. If I just met him a day ago, if he's being like disrespectful or something, bro, like we'll end it. But he came from a highly connected source. I trust it. They vouch for him. I think it'll be great. And he's like, oh, no, 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 Mark. Like, don't worry. I'm so used to this stuff. He's like, oh, I got this. Like, you'll see how I handle it. And I thought it was going to be amazing and great, and it would be some back and forth. I don't know any other words to say this. I did not know that with these things, didn't really know what he was talking about.
Mm.
I'm staying factual here, everyone. So I'm not going to say that he truly didn't know and was trying to mislead people. I can't. I'm doing my best to stay factual here.
Dang. So Mark, who's been friends with Billy Carson all these years, actually believed Billy had knowledge on these subjects that he claimed to have knowledge of. And when confronted with an actual scholar and manuscript historian and all of that, even Mark was shocked at the fact that Billy got shut down so hard. Man, that's crazy.
But, as this started to unfold, I then, the moderator, which I'm not, started joining in to help my man.
Mm.
Although he said the total opposite on that live stream, I've heard. And I started tripling down on Wes, which Wes and I are great friends now behind the scenes throughout all this, on some things that, in all honesty, I normally wouldn't have.
Stretching will not make you flexible, and it will not eliminate your recurring injuries. Stretching will relax your muscles.
Dang, so now Mark is friends with Wes and not friends with Billy, and actually involved in lawsuits against Billy. It's funny how God works, huh? He takes out people from your lives that don't belong there and replaces them with people that should be there.
Do I have some questions and some things about the Old Testament and stuff? Absolutely. But the things like the letters from Paul and some of the stuff where I know I like quadruple interrupted Wesley on that, was partially trying to help my friend out of love and respect, I swear, to level out the playing field. If anyone owes an apology, it's myself to Wes, which Wes and I have talked after the show and stuff. Because I was like,
dang, so that's crazy. If you guys remember during the original video or during the debate, towards the end, Mark really starts interrupting a lot and kind of just takes over for a good 15-20 minutes straight. And so now from his perspective, he's saying that he was doing that to kind of help Billy out of the hole that he was dug into.
Crippling down, and he started being like, well, the letters from Paul come from, and even though I already know all that, I was like, no, I already know what it is. I wasn't even giving him a chance to like respond. And I've seen all of your frustration from that. Anyway, the whole situation was crazy. The energy in the room, like I was so off guard. Also in my head, I was thinking our stuff, we love to leave real and raw and unfiltered. But I was also thinking we'll pull some of that out to make it a better show, you know? And let me just help keep this going so we can just keep it going. But anyway, we continue to move forward. And then there was something that would have come up. And I've talked to Wesley after this about Father Abraham sacrificing not sacrificing, being asked by God to sacrifice his only son, Isaac, at the time. And I know it was muddled and it was kind of back and forth, but a lot of was the whole point. It's real life conversation. I was never meant just to be like a moderator, like, here's your 5 questions that we'll ask. You have 1 minute to answer. Here's your 5 questions, Wesley. It was never meant to be just a debate between Wesley and it was my show. And I were having a conversation way before Wesley was ever involved in this, who was, as I explained before, brought on as an additional guest to join the conversation for the reasons that I needed someone on the other side that had knowledge in these ancient texts, which I knew nothing about. And we were all to have a conversation together. Anyway, before I get to what happened after the show, I just have to say something that's important because I have been attacked since October 18th through now by 99% of people who claim to be Christians and 0.1% of people from like the forbidden knowledge community.
Wow.
And I'm going to get forward into where I understand where some of the attacks did come from.
Dude, that's really sad to hear that the majority of the attacks this poor guy was going through were coming from the Christians. That's terrible.
But there's been some horrible things said by so-called Christians. And I just want all of you to know, luckily, a lot of you don't really know me and my full backstory, that this guy that was in jail and almost died at age 17, and how my faith in God and Jesus is unbreakable at this point in time in my life. And I have a faith that's deeper than the belly of the ocean from everything that I've been through. But man, if I was this new believer, as a lot of you thought, and I was reading all these comments that still continue to come, thousands a day, emails. You're horrible, Mark. You ruined it. You say you believe in God. You're going to go to hell. Your family's going to burn in hell. I would be like, whoa. I don't want anything to do with any of this or these people or this religion. This is insanity.
Dude, that's so sad to hear. I have a frustration like this too. Sometimes Christians are just like the worst people. And I know we're all saved by grace. We're all under Christ. We're all just sinners, that are under the banner of Christ. Thank God. But man, Christians can be such jerks.
And horrible and mean. And to anyone else from the outside that's doesn't know where they are on their beliefs, and you think that you're helping represent Jesus and they're reading that stuff, you're pushing them further away from Christ than you could possibly know. Chill out. Stop throwing freaking stones at everyone. Chill out. It's not necessary. Take a deep breath. For real. I have a whole thing I talk about there's a lot of people that worship the religion over the relationship. And what I mean by that is they love to represent reputation-wise how they've read every scripture, they have every Bible verse memorized, they, whatever it may be, they don't eat meat on Tuesdays, but they do this on Wednesdays, and they do 50 Hail Marys, and they're perfect when it comes to like everything religion asks for and the mask they wear. But when it comes to your actual relationship with God through Christ,
Boom.
Introducing
you don't have one. And you're so quick to judge who's a better Christian. That's a shame. That's a shame. That's what pushes people away. Anyway, just moving forward about that part, some of the things I was talking to Wesley about, I was tripling down. I'm sitting right here next to my man. This all was so unexpected. I know he tried to say all this stuff like it was a setup and espionage, or whatever the heck he said. Lies. Anyone that has seen the full unedited show knows that if you read the comments, they're more irritated with me than anyone else, because I'm the one that kept jumping in and interrupting and doing all this stuff, trying to help on my guy behalf. And I really was. I did not expect any of this to happen the way that it has happened. Oh my Lord, this has been crazy. So Wesley and I have talked ongoing, even after the show. We're good. And one of the things, and Wesley and I are going to do a full follow-up show like we normally would on Elevated Beyond. It was whole backstory. A lot of you don't even know it. It's amazing at what he's overcome. I don't know. Wesley's going to have to share it, being paralyzed at a time, how he overcame that, his whole backstory, the story behind the story. And that's where I would have brought in even more in depth of Father Abraham wanting to be told by God, you need to sacrifice your son, which I know, by the way, has been shown that that's parallels of the New Testament, when God's like, nope, you don't need to sacrifice your son in the last moment, led to the parallels of God sending his own son down to be the final sacrifice. And it was a test of his faith and many other things. I know all that. I'm not as ignorant as a lot of you think, but I understand it from seeing the show and thinking that I was just a so-called moderator. I always have a lot to learn. There's more conversations of that I have as of now that would be like, if I was to be like, hey, Wesley, my man, God told me to take my son, whether he was young or a teenager, whatever it may be, up to the mountaintop. And I know the mountaintop ended up being, I'm not even going to get into all that now, to sacrifice him as a test of my faith. And we got all the way up there, and in the last moment, an angel came out that God sent, and it was like, you don't need to do it anymore, Mark. Here's the sacrifice. Or, I've already sent my son Jesus to die for you. So I didn't kill my son, man. Wesley would, in good conscience, be getting off the phone and calling someone else like, hey, we've got to have someone like mentally check up on Mark, because he just told me God told him to murder his son. He was about to, but then in the last moment, he didn't. This doesn't make or break my belief in God and Christianity and Jesus, everyone. These are just normal conversations that are healthy and able to have. And all of you that love to throw all these stones that act like you've never had any doubts or anything, you can't have faith without doubt.
Mm.
If you didn't have any doubt, why would you need to have faith? Just like you can't have good without evil. You can't have light without darkness. Anyway, that would be for a whole other show. But everyone, the so-called Christians, just try to think about, how bad you slander people and what that's looking like as a representation. A lot of my amazing listeners, I don't claim to be a Christian podcast, by the way. I don't want to be just labeled as a Christian podcast. Everything I do, I want to continue to make it the best that it can possibly be to help people. And this show has always been about sharing the story behind the story of overcoming adversity to achieve significant success, whether I've had NFL players, other professional athletes, Fortune 500 business owners. So going to the end of the show, he did tell me that he had a meeting and stuff going on after. He had to take off. He let me know. He took off. You saw me give him like the dabbed up, the handshake, was out. In that moment, Wesley was having problems with his internet. Was it intentional? No. The reason I also can say it wasn't intentional is there was so much dialogue back and forth where his internet was working fine, where he had plenty of time to respond. So did Wesley.
Yeah, and if you remember in Billy's rant, he kept saying that he could never get a word in, that Wesley's internet kept cutting out every time Billy wanted to refute something that Wesley had brought up. But if you actually saw the actual debate, you know that was not true by any means. And so it's great that Mark now is refuting what Billy said and bringing to light the fact that Wesley had internet problems the whole time. It wasn't just when Billy was talking.
Actually shutting up in some of those moments. And after left and Wesley had problems, I was just started openly talking with Wesley as I would with anyone else, conversation style. I went on to share how great his character was, how great of a friend he's been. And I was sharing some of my own kind of testimony with him a little bit. Wesley's internet started cutting off even more in that moment. To all of you that have seen the fully unedited version, I'm like continuing to talk, seeing Wesley's internet go out, knowing he's literally not even hearing what I'm saying right now, seeing him pop back on, still trying to keep the flow going. In my head thinking, all right, we'll definitely fix a lot of this in editing, but that's a normal conversation we would have had. Anyway, my point being is that, yeah, Wesley did have problems with his internet, but it was not intentional to not answer questions or mine at certain specific times because it was sporadic and then it hit me more at the end than anyone. So the show ends off air now. None of you saw this or heard this. Wesley and I talked for like 15 more minutes. And I was like, bro, I'm seriously sorry for when I was like extremely interrupting and tripling down on you. And I was like, an amazing guy. I love him to death. I wasn't expecting it for him to not know and shut down how quickly he did. And I'm sorry when I overly interrupted you. Some of those things I don't even really have problems with. I was trying to help level out the playing field a little bit. We had a great conversation. Then I start seeing text messages, which I can show proof of. I'm not going to waste my time now, from his wife Hey, I need you to call me after the show. Call my wife after the show. I text my good man. Hey, what's up, bro? What's going on? Hit me up. His wife texts me. I'm like, again, replying to since he's my friend. He was the guy on the show. What's up, bro? Let's talk. They ended up calling me together. They told me,
Yeah, because if you remember, Billy's manager is his wife. So that's why his wife is texting Mark, and that's why Billy and his wife are both on a call right now with Mark.
on this conversation, that all of a sudden she didn't realize that this was going to be a debate, even though and I had talked about doing the show for months and months and months. But it wasn't a full debate. It was supposed to be, as we had, a healthy conversation. Had she known that this was going to be a debate, she said, she would have said not to do it because they supposedly had another debate set up. And this was going to be with a professional moderator. I'm not a professional moderator, but
And that's not true. They didn't have another debate set up. Billy didn't have another debate set up. Billy mentioned this in his 3-hour rant. He said that they had another show that they've been working on with another theologian, and that it was going to be their versus Bible study. So I actually think they just launched that. And I think our buddy over here, the friendly evangelist, he actually did a video on it where he said that if Satan started a Bible study, this is what it would look like. So that was great.
this was a great conversation. And we all had our guards down. We were just having a discussion. Anyway, I'm just sitting there listening. This kind of all caught me off guard. Also, you started saying in this conversation, even though your wife wasn't here for the show, some things that weren't true. Like, Mark, also, that wasn't good at all. Wesley was purposely cutting his internet off every time I tried to rebuttal. Nope. Anyone that's seen the unedited version can make their own judgment up on that. Also, Mark, a lot of his stuff, it was only surface level.
People say to me, John, I don't have time to create content. So if you want to create content, you just document what you're doing.
I was listening to them being nice, and I'm like, on that part, guys, I got to let you know, wasn't surface level. Wesley actually had a lot of knowledge that was very deep. You may not agree.
Yeah.
As he was saying, like with these scholarly type, they have all these different ways they measure things, and it's he doesn't agree with it, and that's okay. We're all entitled to our own opinions. But I'm like, as an expert in the field, one thing I would tell you as a friend, when I had to fight the whole state of Ohio with Dreamshine, there was a lot of things I didn't agree on how they wrote the rules and the laws and how they did things. But what I learned was, to be an expert at their level, I had to know that I had to learn all this and the way they measure things and the way they write the rules and laws, and be able to use that to combat them accordingly, even though half of it I thought was really stupid. So I'm like, just even a tip in business, if you don't think a lot of these ways they measure the methodologies and stuff in the historian community, I would recommend getting to know those well. So like in the future, you're able to be like, well, if this is how this is measured, here's how I can, come back and reply. And he was like, yeah, I understand. So they made a request. Okay. There was never no consent given or an immediate whatever that cease and desist in that moment. They requested that I not air it at this time because they had another debate that was set up, apparently, that didn't know about. And they didn't want this to interfere with that. So in the moment, I'm like, okay, guys, like I wouldn't want to mess that up. The whole thing felt weird. I'm like, so for now we won't air it. I got off the phone and I remember I'm just thinking like, what the heck just happened? This does not seem like the same person that I thought that I've known for the past 2 years. Like, what is going on? And I stewed on it. I obsessed about it. My nephew was visiting here that works like with a UN. I was telling him, I'm like, man, this is messing with my head. Why are they wanting this not to be aired? I don't. And also, this involves another guest, Wesley. And Wesley's already texted me after it, like, hey, Mark, let me know when that's going to air and stuff. And I'm like, all right, I'll follow up with you, my man. And I remember anyone that does podcasts, that really does them, you all know what I mean. We all got into this. Like, I've had a company for 18 years, Dreamshine. I have my books that I do, my speaking. Like, I started podcasting to help other people at a higher level. And was so sick of the news and all the other bull crap out there and all these other fake people that were sharing how to be successful in 30 days. And was always about sharing the real story behind the story. And I'm like, man, because this is my friend, they're like asking me now not to air this. But does that make it right? And what about to my other guest, Wesley? I stewed on it. I didn't sleep all weekend. And by the way, who they were all of a sudden saying came out of his deathbed to be on this show. As I mentioned to you, it was a month earlier and he was very sick and did almost die. And he still was on the mends. However, let me give you the exact date. We recorded that show on Friday, October 18th, and it was Tuesday, October 22nd, when I received a text from him very early in the morning that he had flown to Atlanta to be on another show, which was Steve Harvey. That's what he texted me. I think it ended up being Steve Harvey's sister. Flew to Atlanta, did a whole other show. Okay. Flew to another state to be on another show a couple of days later. I would imagine that show is probably available to the public.
Dang. So, okay, Billy said that he was deathly ill. He just got out of the hospital. He had a Band-Aid on his arm during the debate where the IV was just removed, right? So that was the debate happened November 18th. And apparently he was on his deathbed, right? IV just came out of his arm. But then within 4 days, so on the 22nd of November, he flew to Atlanta to have a podcast with Steve Harvey's sister, which apparently there was a miraculous healing within those 4 days.
But as they said, not my words, his wife said, I was like interviewing a send Wesley like a text or email, hey man, we're not going to air the show. In good conscience, I don't do that. So I called him. I texted him actually Wednesday morning, asked if he had time to talk. We talked.
Might be having an issue here with the internet at my buddy's house while I'm on vacation.
Wesley and I talked for like a good 45 minutes to an hour. I didn't feel right about it at all. As a podcaster, as respect to him, as respect to just sharing the truth, it felt weird and slimy and gross and a stain on my character and my reputation. And I told him, I'm like, man, I'm in a weird spot. I don't like this at all. For now, they're asking me not to air it. Give me time. Let me follow up with them. Let me see if we can do a follow-up and set this up in an even better way. And by the way, Wesley was like, and I were talking, he's like, by him asking not to air this, it's gonna make it like more attention on it than ever. And Wesley's like, Mark, I'm gonna do like a response about this. And I flat out said, I don't blame you. If I was you, I would too. First Amendment, of course, you have the right to do a response. Although some people don't believe that, there's a thing called the First Amendment here. I would have done the same thing.
I'm done spending an obscene amount of money on takeout every week. Done.
I'm getting back on track with Factor.
Fresh.
Wesley did his response, saying the video, we did the show, Billy asked it not to be aired. He shared his whole narrative on it. People started finding out it was on my show. I started getting attacked relentlessly by so many people, so many Christians, so many everyone. And by the way, at this point in time, I understood some of the attacks because this is stuff I was struggling with internally too. They're like, what, you're holding this in because it's your friend, you're trying to cover for him, you're going to lose all credibility as a podcaster. They're questioning my character. Now, some of the attacks were saying some horrible, hateful things that was really crossing the line about myself, my family. But this continued on. And also, before when he flew out to Atlanta, he sent me this long text. I'm not going to waste my time sharing it or reading it to you about what was this whole thing with Wesley. Here's what I didn't agree. His internet wasn't working. Here's the questions I have. It was like he said, I think on his live stream, I was sending him these long texts. He sent me this super long text. I have a whole thing I speak on all the time. I teach my team members. I teach leadership. I teach at speaking events. When you're having conflict, to avoid text confusion, pick up the phone and make a call. A simple example of that is I could respond to someone in this situation and be like, oh, it was fine. And he could take that as, oh, it's fine. And be like, what do you mean fine? Nothing's fine. And you can't understand like the voice pitch and what's going on behind it. And you can start misinterpreting things and trying to read each other's minds. That's where I'm like, you have a quick phone call. So I'm texting him. I'm like, bro, call me after this long text he sent. let's have a quick conversation about this to avoid text confusion. He's like, oh no, I had to vent. I'm getting ready to do this show with Steve Harvey. It ended up being his sister, I believe. I kept texting him, when can we talk? Let's follow up. Like, we need to talk about this. It took like another week. And let me give you another date. All right, dates. Remember, he tried to say that he was so sick debating a dead man. So it was Sunday. I tried to get a hold of my good man a whole week. Let's talk. Sunday, I get a text. Hey, brother, sorry, man. I got so busy teaching a couple 5-hour classes, then had to fly twice. Now I'm in Las Vegas filming. We'll be back Monday night late. We can link up then. He sent me a picture of who he was filming with. It's another very famous celebrity. Again, I kept following up with him. And I'm getting attacked like crazy about this. Mark, your reputation, your character, why aren't you airing this? You're losing all. I was continuing to get so much attack, so much on every level. Attacked. And I'm like, we got to talk. Finally, it was like we recorded the original show on October 18th. This was like around the beginning of November. We finally were able to meet up in person. We met in my backyard here, in my house, sat down one-on-one. Hadn't been able to talk to him since that long text he sent, me getting attacked like crazy, Wesley going public about this, to follow up about the show. So we had a conversation, and again, I was like, I started letting him know, I'm like, bro, first of all, I've been being attacked like crazy since we did this show, because Wesley, which I don't blame him, went public. And so many people that are credible and stuff are attacking my character, my reputation. And like, we need to figure something out. Also, like, even on behalf of Wesley, I see some people attacking him, saying this.
Yeah, you guys have to remember, like, Mark did the video, right? And then the debate didn't get put out. But then Wesley came out and he actually said, hey, I debated Billy Carson and he doesn't want me to put it out. And he's trying to hide it, basically. So as people got wind of that, more and more people came to Mark and were saying, hey, is this true? Hey, why don't you put it out? Then they found out that he's friends with Billy and they're saying, oh, you're trying to cover for Billy. That's what I originally thought too. I actually thought that Mark was trying to cover for Billy because they're friends. But then through some messages with Mark, I realized, like, dude, this poor guy's between a rock and a hard place. His friend doesn't want him to air it, but then he also is trying to do right by Wes. And then it just built up more and more steam, if you guys remember. So more eyes, more pressure, more attacks were on Mark.
Didn't even take place. You're making it up. And I wasn't okay with that either. But and I had a conversation, and he continued to be like, people attack me too, Mark. And that's just part of it, man. It happens. They'll forget about it in due time. Although these same people that have been attacking me since October 20th, when it was made like more public that I was part of it, are the people then that started attacking him later on after the show got released, that they claim to be what caused them all this like psychological damage and such. But when I told him they were attacking me, he was just kind of like, shrug it off, bro. And then I remember talking to him directly and being like, what is going on? Do you not want this aired because like you think, is this like actually going to affect your company or something?
The most important step to any get ready with me is oral hygiene.
This is Amazon's new money-making app. Let me show you how it works. That app is called Audible.
And he's like, oh no. Not at all. We just have another debate that's going to be lined up, and I don't want it to interfere with that. And kind of kept sticking to that story. And I was also like, well, like, what if we set up, like some type of follow up with Wesley or something, and we could even have it more planned? Because I know the show that we did was like kind of sporadic, and it wasn't exactly what we all thought, even though we all gave full consent and came in with great intentions. And he's like, I'll have nothing to do with that Wesley guy.
I don't blame you.
And I remember saying, like, I love you to death. We're great friends, but we've both built from the ground up, our companies. So I'm not just a yes man either. And love you. You're an amazing friend. And I also got to be honest with you, Wesley was really credible and knew his stuff. And the stuff told me some stuff like, oh no, like they're all just like in a cult and surface level. And I'm like, they're all attacking me a lot this whole time, a lot of people. But Wesley isn't in a cult and isn't surface level.
If that's true, if he was just in a cult and surface level, don't you think it would have been really easy to refute him?
He was very respectful and knowledgeable. And I said, and also, so were you on the show. I'm like, I rewatched it. And I said, by you continuing to have this not aired is making it way of a bigger thing than it needs to be.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is making this thing so much bigger because people are thinking like, why are you trying to suppress this? And also Wesley's credible. Like we should set up some type of follow-up. I'm like, this is making it to be a way bigger deal than it should be. I'm telling you, even this as a friend, like this can go and pass and we can all move on. But like this suppressing it is making it like bigger than it should be. It's making it crazy. Anyway, he steered it back to the other debate that they're supposed to have. And just
notice how there hasn't been another debate. There was no other debate. That was just an excuse.
Said, no, I don't want something to interfere with it, I'd appreciate it. Again, it still was a request for the show that they came and did with full consent on my show. I know on his live stream, he said a lot of things. I could waste my time and energy getting into all those and sinking to that level and saying a lot more behind the scenes that I know, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. It's not worth it, everyone. I never expected any of this to come to this. And it's not worth sinking down to that level.
Dude, what a nice guy compared to Billy's 3.5 hour rant where he calls this guy a little girl and just drags him through the mud.
I truly continue to wish the best for everyone. So I'm not going to sink down to some of the other stuff that was said that just isn't true. So I'm going to move forward now. This whole thing, I could not get it off my mind. Like I was struggling with this whole scenario of like, man, am I holding in something that's supposed to be shared? And the truth is a podcaster, and I'm just getting attacked and attacked and attacked. And by the way, let me make this clear. Not by Wesley. Because I know said some things about that, and I do need to clear that out. Wesley never contacted me off air and was like, Mark, you better release this or else, and threaten me or anything. No.
Wow.
Wesley was never anything but kind. And I just met him the day before the show. We've continued to stay in touch and become friends throughout this. He's continued to show me as a man of great character. And I need to make that clear to everyone. I know there's people said, I don't even know if I want to get into some of the crap that was brought up in that live stream. That did. Whew. So much craziness.
And there's a reason Billy took it down, right? I think his rant was up for 3 days or 4 days, and then he took it down because it was full of lies.
Never was I threatened by Wesley. Ever. Wow. Never. Wesley has shown to be a great man of great character throughout all of this. One thing Wesley and I were talking about was by continually saying to not have this aired and it's been public and it's been known about, it's amplifying and exponentiating the effect of it. It's like the biggest marketing for it without even trying to market for it. And I was like, I know, I agree. Like, I'm trying to tell him it actually wasn't that bad. The one that looked the worst in it probably was me. And you can see that in the comments, as you all have been so nice, not at all, to tell me, thinking I was a quote moderator. But again, I had planned it was going to come out edited and be a little different. But anyway, came off as humble. Wesley was. I'm the one that was like interrupting, jumping in. You all heard why earlier. And I was even trying to think like, man, like this could come out and it could be a learning moment. We can all do research, move forward, move onward, move upward. But
did Harvard University just find a way to restore crystal clear 20/20 vision without
continuing to try to just like suppress this whole thing is making everyone wondering, why are you trying to have this suppressed? What are you trying to have hidden? People are thinking. I keep getting attacked. It got so bad. Finally, it was right on. I'm going to give you the exact date. November 22nd, over a month plus since we had recorded the original show, that I decided I'm going to just air this full thing, and I'm going to tell you why and what I sent out fully unedited after being attacked for so long, to let people just see the actual truth. And I knew that I was going to look like an idiot throughout half of it more than anyone, with me jumping in, me interrupting. But I'm like, this needs to get out there. My character's being attacked, my reputation. Wesley's being attacked. People.
So if you are following along so far, the debate happened on October 18th, and Mark only released it November 22nd. So almost an entire month later. That's how long it was held for.
People are slandering him, saying this never happened, you're lying. I wasn't okay with that in good conscience at all either. I'm not okay with that. I'm like, this is not all right. Like, something needs to get out there now. All right, so here's what happened. One thing I forgot when Billy and I met, I did mention how I kept being attacked, everything that happened. And I'm like, at the least, I need to make a response video to this, because Wesley's being attacked, I'm being attacked, and I also need to let people know, since this has been made so widely public, that it did take place and what is going on. And he's like, of course I can't stop you from doing that. I made the response video. I literally told we're going to make the title of it, the debate, I think it was doesn't want you to see. I'm like, from being in the game, we're going to do that as like a clickbaitish type title, marketing wise, get people to see it. Never hid any of that from him. Never. Why would I? I didn't have anything to hide. I didn't think anyone did. This is what's blown my mind this whole time. So the response video was released. That I was happy that it helped to show that I could prove that everyone thought that Wesley was lying about it, wasn't lying. And also, it kind of backfired as the attacks I was already getting continued to just snowball more and more and more. Why are you hiding all this to cover for your friend? And it was already made public, and it just kept getting worse. I tried to talk to him about this. I already shared all that with you. He's like, you'll get attacked. It'll be all right. Finally, it was, and I have it exactly right here, Friday, November 22nd. After all this, we finally decided we're going to release this. And I sent this text. Hey, and my bro, I hope all is well. I could share a screenshot of this if I really want. I have the timestamp, the date, the receipts if you need it, but it's not necessary. I wanted to reach out about the podcast episode we recorded last month. Out of respect for your request, being we are friends, made after the recording, I've refrained from releasing it. Even though everyone, including you, gave full consent at the time of the show. Additionally, this event was widely publicized, and our audience, as well as the other guest audience, Wesley Huff, has been eagerly anticipating its release. Unfortunately, the delay has created significant challenges for me and my brand. The lack of the release has led to widespread slander about my character, reputation, and business. Thousands of people have publicly criticized my integrity for not releasing the episode. The other guest, which you all know as Wesley Huff, who is also a public figure, has expressed frustration and addressed the situation publicly, which has only intensified the backlash, further escalating the situation, which continues to escalate every day that passes. Your request to not release the show came without any follow-up plan of action to address these consequences, leaving the situation unresolved for both myself and the other guest. As a friend, I want to assure you that I understand and respect your concerns. I made a response video going over in depth about all this and testifying your character immensely. This has continued to lead me to be attacked even further on the grounds I'm covering for my friend and affecting my character, reputation, brand, and business. Given the ongoing damage to my reputation and the audience's expectations, I've made the decision that the episode now needs to be released. If you feel it's necessary, you are welcome to release a statement or video to address your perspective. I have no doubt you can prove, I have no doubt you can prove many points and have a very strong rebuttal on many levels. Alternatively, you can choose not to engage, as this content will primarily resonate with the other guest audience and many from my audience who are deeply questioning my character and not necessarily your audience.
Great. The new GoDaddy Arrow has AI marketing tools to help small.
I value our friendship and have tried to navigate this situation thoughtfully. But at this point, the reputational harm makes it essential for this episode to go live. Thank you for understanding. This has all been crazy, and I'm excited for us all to move onward and upward. With love and respect, Mark Minard. So at Friday, November 22nd, after that was sent, the show was released at 10:48 p.m. If you've noticed, it's not on my channel anymore. I went to sleep after that. He sent me a text at around 1:26 a.m. and then said he sent me a follow-up text, not from him, from him, not from a lawyer, and I was sound asleep, saying, "You can't air this. I'm going to have to send you a cease and desist." So he texts me this full cease and desist from him. I was sound asleep. At 2:29 a.m., my teenage daughter wakes me up terrified, saying, Dad, someone's outside, like ringing our doorbell over and over again. I'm really scared. I'm like waking up like, what? Groggy. I look on my phone camera. I see standing out there dressed in the suit, holding a paper. And I tell my daughter, just come here. Just don't even answer the door right now. It's going to be all right. She's like, Dad, I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm like, I don't know what doing, but don't answer the door right now.
Wow.
Everything's going to be all right, Nevaeh. So that was the clip that got released. It's not allegedly. That was factually showing up at 2:29 a.m. with, I don't know what he had in his hand. I can assume it was a handwritten cease and desist that he wrote from seeing what he texted me. That was very weird, very strange, not okay at all. My daughter was terrified by this weird reaction. I saw him mention somewhere else that Mark and I both grind. It's normal. There's times I'll text him at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or he might, and we're in different time zones. And we may or may not respond based on if we're awake or sleep, but we do not go to each other's house at 2:29 a.m.
Yeah, who does that?
Dressed up like that, holding a letter. Unless there was some emergency, like my son was staying the night at their house and something horrible happened, but absolutely not do we cross these types of boundaries. That was strange, weird, and absolutely threatening behavior that terrified my daughter. Not allegedly, factually. Not okay. Factually. I've stayed quiet for a month plus. And you think that I'm sitting here behind the scenes like I'm some wussy underdog. No, I wasn't even going to sink down to the level of this nonsense. Because strategically, I'm building this up behind the scenes so I can move onward and upward. Not okay to show up at 2:29 a.m. at my house, terrifying my teenage daughter.
Dang.
So, my wife was out of the country at that time, different time zone. He and his wife start calling my wife, who has no idea what's going on with all this, waking her up in a different time zone, freaking her out about all this, She calls me, Mark, what's going on? I don't know what's panicking. Mark, I don't know what this is. Let's just try to make, I don't want drama right now. If you release this video, just for the sake of peace and drama, just take it down. I did not take it down because you came to my door at 2:29 a.m. dressed in a suit, terrifying my daughter. When my wife called me from a different time zone and you guys got her all shook up about this. I'm like, you know what, honey? Yeah, I'll pull it down for now. So,
Dude, how is this not harassment? He's shown up to his house. He's calling his wife in other countries. Like, this is like bordering harassment for sure, legally.
was up for less than 4 hours, which my lawyer has on account. My wife and I talked the next day about all this. She's like, Mark, I know that you're not in the wrong. There was full consent, but I don't want a bunch of drama. We live in the same neighborhood. I don't want to get in. Just take it down. I've talked with them. Let's all just figure out a way to move forward. I'm going to be flying back in tomorrow, which would have been on Sunday. It was released on Friday, as I said. Let me look this up. The 22nd, November 22nd. That would have been 2 days later. They talked with her. She went out of her way to just help mediate this so we can all just figure out to move on. Flies in from out of the country, exhausted. First thing she does is goes there, doesn't come, even spend time to see her kids, all the stuff. She's like, Mug, let me just go there and talk to them. You know, we all talked. Let's just do what we all can do to move forward. They explain to her, well, I had already taken it down, not because I had to, because I chose to. Let's try to get us all to move forward. They also told her, you know,
I'm getting back on track with Factor.
Fresh, never frozen meals. They're ready in minutes.
Factor is
if he just removes any other stuff we've done, the previous show when I was on, takes that all off, we can all just move forward. Aiba, my wife, my beautiful African queen of 18 years, came back, talked to me. And she's like, let's just do this, Mark, and move on. I know you don't have to. You've not done anything legally wrong. There's been full consent across the board, but let's just do this and move on. I said, all right, I get it. I understand. We don't want drama. This has all been so hard. This whole situation has been crazy. So I chose to remove the stuff, remove the previous show that we did together. The next day, he has his lawyer write me. Even though my wife went out of her way to mediate the situation, it was supposed to be all good. The lawyer basically rewrites now from a lawyer, the cease and desist, without any actual claim as to what was being done. But anyway, I then met with my lawyer, not because I had to, because I just chose to want to help mediate, make this all move on. We live in the same neighborhood. My son is friends with his stepson. Let's all just try to figure out the best way to move forward. So I had a long meeting with my lawyer and my team. She made it very clear that the series of events that had taken place, first of all, I did not need to remove anything. However, I explained to her that because of my wife and our situation, we just want to try to help choose to make peace and move forward. And of course, I shared with my lawyer what happened with the doorbell incident at 2:29 a.m. Oh, something I forgot. Had his security guy come and hand my 9-year-old son at the time on Sunday after that a cease and desist letter, not from a lawyer, but that had written to my 9-year-old son to come up and hand deliver to me. Anyway,
Dude, that's crazy. So he shows up at the house, scares his daughter, calls his wife internationally, who ends up coming home early from her trip, goes after his 9-year-old son to hand him cease and desist letters to take to his dad. Again, I don't know how that's not harassment.
talk about crossing boundaries. So I'm not going to read this all directly, but basically, my lawyer made it very clear our client expressively denies any violation of Mr. intellectual property rights or his rights of publicity. In the state of Florida, which we both reside, the First Amendment rights have been construed as an exception to any such frivolous claim Mr. may purport to have. Nonetheless, as an act of goodwill, Mr. Minard has chosen to remove, on November 23rd, 2024, Mr. Minard removed audio, video of Mr. second Elevating Beyond with Mr. Minard podcast episode, 2024 episode, recorded with the participation and consent of Mr. on October 18th, 2024. This removal occurred approximately 4 hours after the episode was released. I did this in good conscience. Or how exactly did she word it? As an act of goodwill. Then she wrote on November 24th, 2024, Mr. Minard removed the audio video of Mr. first Elevating Beyond with Mark Minard podcast episode, the 2023 future recorded with the participation and consent of Mr. Carson in April 2023. And I went above and beyond that on November 24th, 2024. Mr. Minard removed the audio video of a response podcast episode, which aired on November 12th, 2024, in which Mr. Minard addressed Mr. Carson's participation in the 2024 Carson episode.
So now these guys are, in their response videos, are reading legal letters from each other's lawyers. So this for sure is going to go to court. This is going to be fascinating to watch how it unfolds.
All of these things I did out of an act of goodwill. On November 24th, 2024, Mr. Minard removed promotional clips promoting the 2024 episode. She went on to explain the exact things that I had removed and also went on to say any further correspondence regarding this matter should be directed to me. Mr. Minard's legal counsel mentioned her name. It should be further noted that any ongoing unwarranted communication regarding this matter from Mr. Carson and Mr. Minard will not be tolerated, is not welcome, and must cease. 2 examples include excessive text messages from Mr. Carson and Mr. Minard discussing the matter, the physical presence of Mr. Carson and Mr. Minard's home to discuss the matter. We have video footage of the excessive doorbell ringing at 2:30 a.m. on November 23rd, 2024.
Wix gives you the freedom to tell your story.
She went on to explain a few more things. She didn't mention the security guard incident at that time. Moving forward, it was just a couple of days after that when I went to fly to Ohio for my company Dreamshine for our individuals with developmental disabilities for our monthly all dream team meeting. Again, out of good faith, I removed everything, even though I didn't have to, so we all can move forward. My plane is landing in Ohio, and I get a text message from, I don't want to mention the person's name right now because I don't know if he's willing to have it mentioned, saying there's a video clip that Anton made with like at your doorbell and this whole response thing. And can I do a response to it? And I'm like, wait, what? Like Anton did what? He made what's going on? You can see Anton made a public response video on this on another show that he got into my files.
Ooh, I wonder if that was my show because we interviewed Anton.
Without my permission, and I was pissed about that.
Dang, he said Anton got into his files without his permission. Interesting.
Because at this point in time, we just were trying to get this drama to stop and move forward for the sake of my wife, my children, our family. The 2:30 a.m. doorbell. We just wanted to move forward. I had no idea that was happening. I was pissed about it. I let Anton know. It got out there. I didn't give permission for it.
Wow.
But in hindsight, don't come ringing people's doorbells at 2:30 a.m. terrifying my daughter is what we need to continue to focus on. I wasn't happy that Anton accessed that and put it out there because I didn't want any more drama because of my wife and our family. But sticking with the facts, there would be nothing of there to even put out if you wouldn't have come and rang my doorbell excessively at 2:30 a.m. and terrified my daughter.
Wow.
This whole thing has been out of hand. Anyway, at this point, they continued to contact my wife. My wife does not want to be dragged into the middle of all this crap. She wants to move on. And then I think their lawyer wrote something of mine saying about Anton released these things. I must have directed him to do that, which absolutely is not true. My lawyer responded saying, obviously, those allegations are not true. Whatever you have with that person is not my client. Take it with them directly. Then she went on to say, now bringing my wife into it because they continued to keep texting my wife about this and she's getting all worked up, stressed out. My lawyer responded as such. We are confirming Mr. Minard did not direct or authorize Anton to release or distribute the content in question. Please direct your grievances to Mr. Wibisky directly. As previously explained, and as an act of goodwill, Mr. Minard removed Mr. presence from the video and audio platforms, and she wrote The actions and dates were previously detailed on Tuesday, November 26, 2024, where we detailed each and everything that we chose to remove. Not because we had to, out of an act of goodwill. We are further requesting that all communication from Mr. or his representatives regarding this matter be directed to legal counsel underline only. Mr. Minard and his spouse are no longer willing to be contacted by Mr. or his representatives, which included his wife, obviously.
Most people have no clue that in 2024, the best way to make money with Amazon is not with.
And she wrote it.
This is getting dirty. And again, Billy's like including his wife, his kids, everybody in this.
There, including his spouse, regarding this matter. Of course, something text about the kids, something regular. All good. We wanted the drama to go away and move forward. Regarding this matter, this was now the second warning, which my lawyer wanted to use the word harassment. I said, don't put that in there right now. We just want to try to move forward. The second warning, do not contact them regarding this matter. This time in the second warning, she specified my wife as well. The first time, my lawyer said to put it in there, but understandably so, my wife's like, just leave me out of it. She didn't want anything in this. She's like, let's just move forward, Mark. I talked with them. It's going to be all good. They're not going to bring this to me. But as they continued to, now it was brought up to make sure to leave her out of it as well regarding this matter. Please ensure your client and his representative refrain from such actions. Meanwhile, I continue to stay behind the scenes. I'm getting attacked ongoing since after the very first time we recorded that show and Wesley went public, which I don't blame him. I love Wesley. Now it's exponentiating. Thousands of comments, now emails, slandering me at every level, every day by everyone. And this keeps snowballing. Then he decides to do this live stream that I've been told was like 3.5 hours long. I think it was on December 8th, including also his wife doing a video. And I didn't even watch the whole thing. I had clips sent to me. We saved some for evidence. I'm going over all this with you today, and I am done with this. I'm moving onward and upward. I am so done and over this. I'm done with it. But, of course, I need to get my response out here. I will not just be silenced and bullied and threatened, thinking that I don't have First Amendment rights to share the truth. So this 3.5 hour live stream takes place. I'm not going to sink down to the level of the horrible lies and slander, defamation that were made against myself, my wife, my character, by his wife, on so many levels. Not to mention the absolute threats of taking me down, of suing me for $1 million plus, and all these other things that just were not true. And all these falsified things, slandering myself, my wife. I'm not going to sink down to that level. I'm not. Never once did I say anything bad about character or his wife on any of my shows, even on the response? Never once. I continue to speak so highly. Even on my response original video, when I was saying I'm struggling with this, this is hard for me, this right, I still spoke highly, continue to vouch for his character. Never once did I sink down and start bringing out personal stuff and slandering anyone. Never once. But on that live stream, the things that you and your wife said, whew, there were lies. They were slandering myself, my wife. I'm still not going to sink down and get into that.
That's sad.
Another thing was threatening, which came to Florida's SLAP law, which is codified under section 768.295 of the Florida statutes, which states no slap suits allowed. Anyone can look that up, what it really is. But it's when government entities and private individuals are prohibited from filing lawsuits that are without merit and intended to chill free speech. In addition to that,
do not buy solar panels if you live in California. Americans living in the zip code starting with 90, 91.
Trying to threaten people just to have to pay for a bunch of money for a lawyer. After that 3.5-hour live stream.
Yeah, if you guys remember during Billy's response video, he said outright, he said he doesn't care if he wins or loses. He just wants to make these guys spend money in court, which I'm pretty sure is completely illegal.
I continued, and
that's probably why he took the video down, to be honest.
I have been this whole time to be attacked at every level. Threats to me, threats to my family, and I've stayed behind the scenes and continued to try to move on. And I'm being honest, when weird things like what I saw on some of those clips from that 3.5-hour live stream in the 2:30, 2:29 a.m. ringing the doorbell, I haven't felt safe. And I truly wish the best for my man, his wife. I truly do. I truly do. No one ever expected any of this to come to this. I also know that we live in this private neighborhood, and I want our sons to be able to enjoy meeting their other friends and playing basketball and put all that first. And this has all been more than any of us could have ever possibly imagined. And then, even though the lawyer mentioned to stop, texts still started coming to myself about this, which I'm not going to open them up and share them. I'm not sinking to that level, but some horrible things were said. Even though I had been continuing to be attacked as well, and my family and my kids, with comments and threats and other horrible things, as I had been talking about for a long time. But I just chose to block some people and move on. Then these things started coming from them to my wife, trying to bring her back into this. And that's why the lawyer specifically mentioned, stop bringing anything to do with this to them. It's causing psychological damage and stress, and we all want to move on. My wife and I, listen to me. I love you all. We're not afraid of this bullying and these threats that you all have been doing. It's that we would rather just take the high road and move on. And I even apologized to my wife that this has brought drama to her. And I really want to move on. We want to move onward and upward. And moving forward, like, I'm done with all this. We are all entitled to our own opinions, but not our own facts. I truly came into the show from someone who I thought was my friend, that this was going to be an amazing conversation, which we all gave full consent to, as always, with every show across the board, not knowing that it would come out this way. Not having a clue. My good man, your wife, your family, I truly do wish you the best. I truly do. I truly wish you the best. We all just want to move forward. You know, we only know what we know, and this includes myself. And the amazing thing about life is, as you learn new things, you're able to gain wisdom from them and take that new information, which I talk on this in my company and leadership all the time. There's so many times, personally, I'm talking about me, where I've screwed up. And I've screwed up by not being able to myself, I'm talking about me, take accountability and try to blame others. And I also have been able to learn at the other level of like, whoa, I've been able to step up as myself, my company Dreamshine, and been like, you know what? I was wrong. And here's what I learned from that. And I'm sorry. And here's how we're going to move forward. And my team wasn't like, how dare you as the owner admit that you were wrong? And they respected me more. This is part of what I talk about in ways, the four enemies of unity, which we'll be getting back on track of with the regular shows. No one's perfect at all, including me. We're always learning. We're always doing our best to better our best. And it's literally a lifelong journey. I truly do wish you the best. This is my deposition. And I'll end it with this. God is orchestrating.
So, for example,
Dang. Well, guys, thank you for sticking around. That was Mark Minard's response to the whole situation and update, and it sounds like he's over it and just wants to move on. I'm pretty sure they're going to go to court. And it'll be fascinating to see how this plays out. So thank you guys for sticking around. Make sure to keep these guys in prayer because they're going to need it. And like this video so that it gets shared with some more folks once it goes live. And have a good night. And thanks for being with us.